Okay, so we have DI and we have RO. This is Peter Thomas's RO, which has got some mods. It's a flow with some modifications. And so now we have, this is the original, and then we have Flow Red, which is like if you've got an iPhone 7 and you've got an iPhone 7S, like Flow Red is like a 7S. You know, it's an upgrade of the same thing. Everything that we learned, there's probably, I don't know, 300 of these in operation, and then we went to getting the feedback and then saying, okay, let's sharpen up all the little things. The RO membranes we upgraded. We actually had RO membranes made for us for window cleaning. So most RO membranes are made for potable water, laboratories, hospitals, nuclear power plants, desalination plants is a huge industry. That's all RO systems. RO systems are usually running 150 psi, TDS 750, temperature of the water 25 degrees Celsius. That's the lab rating, and then they'll come out at 2,400 gallons per day or 2,600 gallons per day. None of that's particularly relevant to a window cleaner. So we're more interested in the fluid dynamics of how much we can get out of it. And with the new force filter membranes, what we did is we asked the manufacturer to say, look, we don't need 99% rejection, we're happy with 96% rejection if you can give me more pure water, more permeate, right? And so these membranes are actually made to deliver with less pressure, so they'll work on 30 psi, right? They're actually factory rated at 100 psi with the same ratings as the other ones that are at 150 psi. So they're a very special membrane that was developed for the domestic household systems to run without pumps, to run under tap pressure, right? And so we got them to make great big ones for us and then change the way the water flows so we get more water through them. But the logic of an RO is that we want to filter the water and protect the RO. We take a sediment filter. You'll see them 5 micron, 10 micron, 20 micron. So 5, 10, and 20, if you can buy 20 by 20, right? We're not so fussed about how many sediments we take out. Like 20 micron is still crazy small, but 5 micron will stop your flow. Not stop it like stop it, but it'll slow it down because it's a smaller hole, so the water's got to squeeze through a tighter filter, right? And then it clogs faster. If you clog a sediment filter, like this one's looking like it's on its way there, maybe not, but on its way there, maybe not. But anyway, it's got some little bit of rust in there. And but as that clogs, that'll also slow down the available pressure into your reverse osmosis system, which ultimately ends up how much pressure you're going to end up at the final point of your brush. Okay, so everything's going to balance out. So sediment takes out like organics and large chunky things and things like rust. Then there's a carbon filter. The carbon filter's only function is just to take out chlorine, because the tolerance to chlorine of a reverse osmosis membrane is close to 0. So if you feed chlorinated water through an RO, then it'll just eat the little holes out and make them bigger and bigger and bigger, and then ultimately you will not have an RO, right? It'll look like an RO, it'll behave like an RO, but it won't filter like an RO. Okay, so the chlorine, the little carbon filter should be changed religiously, I think on the first of the month, every month. They're about, I don't know, $6, $10, something like that. Maybe a little bit more for the granulated carbon ones. Again, there's block carbon and granulated carbon. Granulated carbon is like a maracas, you know, you can hear it like that. That has less resistance than a block carbon, where they've granulated it and then glued it together and then pushed the water through. Block carbon performance better, right, longer for residential systems, irrelevant to us as window cleaners, right? The difference is irrelevant. It's not like 5 times better or 3 times better or 2 times better. It's just irrelevant better, but it is better. If anybody says they're better, go, you're right, but I want water flow. That's why I have granulated, right? So granulated, if you shake it and you can hear it, that's granulated. So that's what that's for. That's only just getting ready for the RO. Now, why do we have RO? It's actually because we want to use DI normally, right? The DI is the only filter that delivers ultra pure water. It demineralizes the water by ionic attraction. We use mixed bed resin. Half the ionic attraction is positive, half the ionic attraction is negative. If you remember your periodic table, calcium, for example, is 2+. So we need something that's minus in the DI tank that's going to draw that 2+ and hold on to it. Okay, so the way a DI system is working, all water in, is got minerals in it, all water out, should have no minerals in it, or marginal, let's say. So if you're at TDS 150, you could run DI only, no problem, right? Because it'll cost you, I don't know, $2 an hour. You know, if you're making 150 bucks an hour, $2 an hour, if you haven't got the money to start off with RO, or you haven't got the work to justify on RO, you can definitely start with 2 DI tanks like that and you'll be fine. Like fine. We had 3 RO systems in Sydney, RHG5s, and we ended up just running everything on DI because it's so much more convenient, less top start, less pressure issues, less like everything. You know, so I'm a big fan of DI if you can. The reason we have an RO is to save DI, because if you get to 550, you talk like TDS 550, like here, then you're talking like $7, $8, $9, $10 an hour running cost on DI, which becomes prohibitive because you've got to change the DI as well, which is another cost, right? So then you want ROs. And the way an RO works is it basically is a tube going down the middle, going into some membranes, and pushing the water against the wall of a membrane, which have got tiny little holes in it, and then you need pressure to push the water through. So it's rated at 300 psi maximum kind of thing, but we pretty much stick around 100, 150 is fine. And then you're trying to push the water through these little holes. If an H2O molecule is near there, it'll go through the little hole. And if it's a calcium molecule, what actually happens, you kind of imagine, oh, I get 1 calcium, I'll get 1 water attached to it. But actually the ionic attraction of a calcium molecule is so much that the water clusters around it like groupies, right? So the calcium molecule is the superstar, turns up at the membrane, the whole cluster can't get through. So it just moves on and comes out to waste, yeah, as a rule, right? Because there's always a TDS that comes out of ROs. So you're trying to get your dirty water to stay on one side of the membrane and the pure water to come through the other side, and you want a pressure differential across the membrane to achieve that. Right? So the key to thinking about, I always think about my RO as just I draw a line in the middle, I go the dirty water on this side, the pure water on this side, and I need a pressure differential across that line. So if I want more flow, I can increase the pressure before the RO. Right? That will give me more pressure differential and give me more pressure on the other side of the RO. Yeah? But there's another way. If I had the same pressure at the beginning before the RO, and I disassembled all the hoses and tubes and fittings, and if I didn't have any responsibility for gravity, right, and I just delivered the water out of the RO to 1 atmosphere pressure, which on, you know, at sea level is the pressure that we live in as humans, right, then we maximize for the available pressure before the RO, we have maximized the output of the RO, because it doesn't have to push through that reel, it doesn't have to push through that hose or that tube, and it doesn't have to offset the back pressure that's created by gravity, 5 psi per story. You see that? Because all of that is coming back and putting back pressure here, reducing the pressure differential. The lower the pressure differential, the lower the flow of the RO. Yeah. So again, buffer tanks, whether you're running 1 pole or 2 poles, if you have room, a buffer tank, like just a little 100 litres, you know, something, right, is all you need, but then you will maximize your flow rates and control the amount of water that you deliver through your fluid dynamic systems with a 12-volt pump. That's best. Now, it's designed as a on-demand connect up and run without a pump. That's what it's designed as, but I'm just talking about optimal, yeah? Like you want to go to 16, well, you want to go to 20-inch brushes, and then you start thinking about how to do this, or you're working, like somebody said, they're working with 30 psi at the tap, right? Then you're starting to deal with, you can imagine you've got some problems, right? Trying to get a big brush on the glass, yeah? So, Peter, how many times, and Todd, how many times do you have a pump on your system?
I do, yeah. So,
do you use it all the time, or is it part of the time?
I use it maybe 10 to 20% of the time.
Right.
It's, yeah.
And is it a booster pump or a delivery pump?
So it's a booster. So I've got a 12-volt diaphragm pump. So I've basically got, right from the tap, goes into the diaphragm pump, That's connected to an old car battery, and then basically hose straight out that into the inlet of that.
Back into the inlet of that.
And like that's getting me up to about 100 psi, and like water's flowing rapidly out of that. So
yeah, you get this to 100 psi, it's cranking water.
Yeah.
So with the new force filters, we can do 35 psi because that's what we've got in the factory, and we tested on 2 stories.
And I've got the old.
He's got the old one, yeah. So we increase the flow rate between 25 and 43%, depending on the pressure. The higher the pressure, the higher the increase. But we've definitely got a 12-inch brush working at 2 stories, 2.5 stories.
And that's also a 16-inch brush I've got. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the 16-inch brush makes a difference because you add another 13 jets, right? You see that?
Yeah.
So rather than spending $4,000 on a pump, you can spend $250 on a ATV 100-litre tank with a 60 psi pump on it, right, included, and you've got all of those answers, right? You can deliver, and that can push water to 7 stories.
And the good thing with that system as well, if you've got a 60-litre tank in the back, if you're doing it sort of like a small little shop front, you can just basically pull up the front where there's no tap, basically just get the hose out, do those couple of like shop fronts, and you're gone, so you've got your water supply with you as well.
The other way, so when we first made the Wash It Pro system, we had printed on it RO for low and DI for high. So there's another way, right? You can choose whichever way suits you, but you can get 2 of these DI tanks for $300 Aussie, something like that, you know. And then every time you hit a situation where you want to use a bigger brush and you haven't got the velocity of water through the brush, you can just switch to DI. Right? It doesn't use any pressure. 35 psi will clean to 4 stories, you know, and you just use it for that extra high work or that really low water pressure work, and it's a cost against the exception work. You know, it's just treat the 80-20 rule. It's an exception. It's a small part of your total business, and then you can save money that way. We have another way. Those of you who are in 400 TDS and you don't want to put $2,500, $3,000, I think it's $2,990 Aussie dollars we'll sell this for, right, the Flow Red. If you don't want to put that kind of money into it, then we have a technique called the drive-through car wash method. Right? Now when you go through a drive-through car wash method, you pay that extra $1 for the spot-free rinse, right? But actually they washed your car with tap water and brushes. They washed your car with tap water and brushes. So what stops you from washing all these windows with tap water and brushes? And then going back over it, you're going to leave spots, right? The spots are going to be from the tap water, right? Nothing that was on there, no BPOOs there still because you've used all the proper technique. And you can just go 10 seconds a window. Like these ones here, less than 10 seconds, 5 seconds, just up, down, off, up, down, off. And all you're doing is agitating and rinsing the tap water if it hasn't dried, yeah. Even if it's dried. So if it's still wet, you're not even going to see it. If it has dried, you'll see the spots and you'll see them come off. And that is just like that polish, right? Just polish the windows. And if you wanted to start with water fed and you don't want to spend $5,000, then that's a legitimate way of doing it. We've got guys all over America who are professional window cleaners in hard water areas who just don't want to use an RO system or don't want to buy one or can't afford one because they got 5 kids or whatever it is, I don't know why, but they use this method like continually. We also teach pressure washers to use this method because they are only going to wash the windows after they've pressure washed the house, like everything's nearly clean. They just want to leave it spot free. You know, there's no great advantage for them to spend $2,500, and get an ROI, and they're just going to use the DI water just to go and remove the spots that are left on the window after the pressure wash or the soft wash. Okay, so it's a legitimate technique, it's a legitimate way to get around the problem of living in a hard water area and having to invest thousands and thousands of dollars before you can switch to water fed. Yeah, that was a bit awkward. I might not do that again. And again, it's sacrilegious to say that because we're a manufacturer and we're kind of teaching you how not to buy stuff. But it's also the truth, and it's legitimate to share with you because there will come a time where you don't want to use that 2-step technique, and you will want to buy an RO system, and you'll respect that we were the ones who saved you the money on the way through. We think, So that's why we we teach you what we know about how to cut corners as much as we teach you about how to, invest in our equipment. Okay, so any questions on that? Because that's quite a strange thing to tell you, that you can actually wash windows with tap water and brushes and then go back and polish them with pure water. We have a product, by the way, I don't know if you've seen it in there, called Check It. Did you see that? There's a little box on the back table. So Check It is a TDS meter, right? So you'll see us, the way we put our poles together, we have the tube runner running up here, right? And then it drops into a push fit. So the rhino tube goes here, and then from here we run a loop to here so that we don't interfere with the swivel. If you have Check It, you just lift that up to there, and we put a TDS meter in here. So if you're using the drive-through car wash method, you can just press here, the light is green, that tells you what the TDS is, and you watch it go 500, 400, 300, 200, 100, 0. Light goes green, go for it, polish those windows. We're serious about this technique because it works. Yeah? And then you flush your system, yeah?
That would work well on pool fences too. Whereas I use...
Anything which takes a lot of agitation and you haven't got an RO system.
Yeah. Because I use my ragtail one pass with just tap water running through my hoses.
Right.
To clean the thingos, but then you've always got little bits, like you were saying, little handles and stuff where you can't get around, but then you can do it.
No, that's what slows you down.
Then you can run over it with the DI just after that. One question I was going to ask though, with the carbon filter, I've been told that every time I change my resin, I should change my carbon filter and sediment just by looking at it. If it looks dirty, change
I think that's dangerous because
the carbon need
because the resin, if you look at all flows have got RO only and RODI, right?
Mine's DI only.
Well, DI only doesn't benefit from carbon. You just throw it away. There's no reason to have a carbon filter in front of DI.
Carbon's only designed to stop the chlorine, and the chlorine stops. This is what does the damage.
Why do they sell so many with it?
The chlorine.
Oh yeah, but they do it because they've read. If you read up on DI resin, it says, you should always have a carbon filter in front of the DI resin. Who writes that? So again, challenge the source, find out who's writing it. Who's writing it is Culligan's National DI. So the DI companies in America that are regenerating resin. So they're giving you resin tanks, right? And then they're taking those resin tanks and then separating the positive and the negative beads and then regenerating them into, and using them again. Now, you expose a DI resin bead to chlorine and its regeneratable life goes from 10 years to 6 years if you don't use a carbon filter. If you're using virgin resin and throwing it in the rubbish bin, it doesn't do anything except the parts per million chlorine, which you can look up on your drinking quality report. There's probably 3 or 4.
So does the carbon filter lower the TDS at all?
No, zero effect.
Just protection.
No. Let me correct that. It's taking out the chlorine, so it's taking out 2, 3, or 4 parts per million, depending on how much your local water
So
supply
out of
sanitizes.
440 parts per million, it might be 437 parts per million.
Yes,
Exactly.
Yes,
Well, I've
That's
done
a
it at
waste
home.
of time.
yes.
It has
And there's
no
only
effect.
one other time is that we know that in Australia there are some councils that flush with super chlorinated water. And you just smell the chlorine coming out of the tap. Now in that case, if your council does that day, that chlorine must be more than 3 parts per million, right? I can tell you, because you can smell the gas. You turn on the tap and you can smell the gas, right? So in that sense, you could say on a super chlorinating day, maybe that water could damage, I think it can damage the rest.
You could test that. I mean, swimming pools run at 3 to 5 parts per million
Right.
for free chlorine.
Yeah.
So surely that's something you drip a
Possibly,
dipstick in.
I wouldn't bother. I mean, you'd probably pick it up. If you knew to smell for it, then you'd go, okay, I've turned the tap on, and you go, whoa, shit,
That is really good to know, because when I change out my resin out of my cylinder, put new stuff in, I always used to keep enough pure water to fill that back up before
Right.
I put the thingo back in. Peter from Window Cleaning World did said, don't worry, just fill it from the tank, because that's tiny little bit of chlorine won't affect it anyway.
No.
But now you're saying that chlorine won't affect the beads at all.
Well, they affect them at all,
No, but not
for regeneration, but not for the purposes of a window cleaner with virgin resin going in a rubbish bin afterwards.
That inlet into the carbon filter then is not doing anything really.
No, except protecting you against the superchlorination.
That's interesting to know.
Period.
And then the next question, sorry, while you're still talking about that.
What we do is we give you 2 of these. These are 6.5 litres, so we give you like 12 litres, half a bag, half a cubic foot. The reason I give you 2 is so because the first one's going to do the work and the second one becomes your redundancy. The way DI resin works is like a battery. It's like charged up, right? And the factory can charge it to 12 megaohms, 15 megaohms, 18 megaohms, anything in between or below, but not more than 18 megaohms. That's your kind of rating. That's how much you've charged the battery. If you think about, think about an electromagnetic battery, right? So imagine that the DI resins are an electromagnetic battery. So they've been charged up 12, 15, 18, whatever they are, right? But the higher charged they are, the more power is in the battery. Yeah. So now I got my electromagnetic batteries and I'm picking up iron filings, right? And iron filings are coming from anywhere and everywhere, even if it was in water. Like the iron filings would come and they'd grab hold of my little electromagnetic battery. But as that battery goes down, right, and starts to run out, it loses its ability to attract new iron filings, but it's got the ones that it's got, right? Then, as that battery runs down again, it now can't, not only can it not pick up any iron filings, it can no longer hold on to its iron filings. So a depleted, exhausted, totally maggoted DI tank will deliver a TDS much higher than the TDSN out, right? It starts releasing all of what it caught, yeah? So that's why we're looking at what's that prime point to change the resin is as you see it creeping up to, anywhere from 0 to 10 as your safe zone across the world, right? That's teaching because it's a universal safe zone, right? So you see it creeping up 2, 3, 4, 5, then you go, okay, I'm gonna have to change that out. But if you've got 2 tanks and you're testing the first tank every day, right, the second tank is gonna be your catch-all, so you don't have to change it out now or today, whatever. The second tank is gonna take over, right? But you don't wanna think that, oh, the first one is, TDS in is 400 and my first tank TDS out is 200, so I'll keep using the 200 because it's exhausted already, right? It's burnt out one side of itself, like because there's an anion and a cation. One side is already gone, right? Then it's got the batteries dropping, right? You want to change it out, right? I see so many guys right on Facebook, they can, keep it going until it's whatever, and it's just total not true. Right? Yeah. When a TDS is over 10, it's exhausting. Check your flow rate because a DI tank relies on water contact time. Right? So if you've got a massive flow rate and you want to, check whether it works, shake it in case it's got channels, would be another one, right? Disturb it. And then the other one is slow down the flow rate and see if you can get it to still work with a slower flow rate. And then change down the size of the brush.
So at TDS at 10, you're throwing it in the bin?
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Yep.
Are you running 2 tanks or 1 tank?
Just one. I'm just wondering. That's what I'm wondering, whether that's useful or whether it's worth throwing
10 it's true. Like 10, it's still taking out, and if it's 50-50 and you've got 400 in, until it's at 200, both sides are still working. It's just telling you, I can't catch everything.
Yeah.
Right? But I wouldn't run it to 200.
You want to give yourself a second tank, and then when it goes through the first tank and into the second tank, if it goes above 10, the first tank is the one you throw in the bin. The second tank you put as number 1.
Yeah.
And then that brings it back down to 10 before it even hits your new stuff.
Yeah.
So you only throw the first tank away. The second tank becomes your first tank. You understand that?
Yeah. So there is some method in using it as a pre-filter is what I was asking essentially.
Yeah, but not over, if it's a 50-50, then not over the 50, nowhere near the 50-50 mark. And if it's a 60-40, nowhere over the 40% mark, because you don't know which side's gone out. So if you've got TDS 100 in, and it's going up to 40, right? At 40, one side of it's completely exhausted. Right? So it's no use driving it to the 40 mark. But you can keep using it past 10 as a number 1 filter if you have a number 2 filter. Yep. So in series. Okay. DI for high, RO for low is one option. Buffer tanks, drop the water out of your RO system into a buffer tank. Use 12-volt delivery pumps to give you the pressure to the glass. Is way better than spending $4,000 on a pump. Yeah, way more functional, way more useful, overcomes way more issues, and way cheaper. And follow Todd up on the diaphragm pump.
Yes, I'm looking for one.
Yeah, it's good. Because in America we have 110 volt, you know, like really low cost, $200, 110 volt booster pumps. You know, the $200. So we just built the flow to handle those. There's a cavity under there somewhere. Yeah, and then we handle those pumps under there.
Just ordered one last night with a 240 volt diaphragm pump. So I'll be testing that in about a week's time. So that way, for the guys who don't want to be carrying a 12-volt battery around, it gives the option of putting that into the system, and then you can run an extension cord from the house. So, especially if you're doing longer days at a big place. And then if you don't have the extension cord, then you guys can use gen sets. So I'll try and find both a 12-volt option and a 240-volt option.
And what did that pump cost you?
That was in the order of $80, just under. So yeah, like
you get the meaning. Like if you buy pumps from pump people, they're a lot cheaper than buying pumps from not pump people. You want to put margin on margin on margin and make sure there's enough money for everybody except you. All right, let's talk about proprietary filters. That's another one. Proprietary filters. So everything which you see here, you can go to Bunnings and buy this and this. You can go to Amazon and buy the resin for that. We've got little bags that are kind of cool coming out in the next couple of weeks that, you know, will drop in and out, you know, your resin bags. So you don't have to fill them with a scoop or with a funnel or anything like that. Because the good thing about this is it's got a full 200 millimeter throat. So it's, you know, the other ones are like 100 millimeters. This is a full throat, so we can just drop a bag in there. But that way you can buy anybody's resin, you can buy anybody's filters. The reason why there's a lot of hidden maths in looking at what is my replacement cost of my membranes, right? So 2 membranes for a flow or a flow red is $269 US. Let's say 320 for a pair. You know, like we just don't jag you on that, but a lot of the logic that's sold to you about why you should do this and that is so that you don't have to replace the membranes, because the membranes are so expensive, because they made the membranes so expensive. It's not that they cost that much. You know, we got 100% on the membrane, which is enough for us. You know, for us to sell it at $260, you know, US for a pair. Yeah. So then now you start not listening to all the BS about, oh, you got to look after your membrane. Oh, you got to look after your membrane. Don't do that, or your membrane will go, like, because you don't care if you have to replace the membranes in 2 years' time. That's $130 a year for your membranes. You know, that's nothing. You know, and they will definitely last the 2 years unless you do something silly like not take the chlorine out. Yeah. And then RO, the other one is RO for low, no, RODI. So the back of the flow has got always, on all of them, they've got a setting RO only or RODI. So if you can get spot-free water from your RO, which is like in the 150 TDS area, that will definitely come out of the RO spot-free. Then you don't need to put the water through the DI, so don't. Save that for another day. Save that for when you pick up some of these, when you pick up like Joondalup.
So the carbon, for the guys that do have the RO, how often do you have to change the carbon filter then?
I think you should change the carbon filter at the first of every month when it's in use. Just religiously.
Like continual use? Or?
Yeah.
if you use them daily.
Every day,
Yeah.
just do it. Just do it because you know that's your insurance policy
And
against
they're not that
everything.
expensive.
They're not expensive. Just
Yeah.
they're granulated, cheap ass carbon filter. Yeah. There's nothing special. It's coconuts. It's husks. After everybody's eaten the meat and they've drunk the milk. You know, from Samoa or Brazil or somewhere, it doesn't matter. You know. Okay. Like it's really not a precious resource.
No, whereas you save, like I say, it's insurance for the RO.
Yeah.
I just found it interesting that the carbon filter on a DR system, you don't really need to change it really. You know, well, you might have to do it once a
And
year.
like we were there before because we used to make DI systems with carbon filters, sediment and carbon filters before the DI. Like we didn't understand any of that before, but you know when you look at the when you read up on it, you go, no, there's no reason except for the regen guys. They want it there. You know, but there's nobody in our industry regenning. So.
And are we good still to use mixed bed resin?
Sure.
Is there
Oh, yeah,
nothing-
definitely. Yeah, so there's two mixed beds, there's 60-40 and 50-50. If you can get 50-50, you should get 50-50. Whatever, like, you know, the two things that you're looking for, I'm going to suggest to you that 50-50 is better from window cleaners because I've spoken to all of the manufacturers over the years, right? And anyway, you don't want to know the real maths behind that, but 50-50 is better. And the second thing is what you're looking for is how well it's been charged, and then we're all buying out of either an Indian or a Chinese factory.